Hi everyone, it's been a little while. I've been a little bit busier than I expected, and I wanted to bring you an update to the Dahlia house, which I'm standing in. We had a major family event leading up to Mother's Day, the week leading up to Mother's Day, which was a good thing. It was a good thing when my kids was in the school musical, and it just took a lot of our time, and we had performances and we had family coming in from various places to enjoy the performance. And we had one of my brothers staying with us, so I had a house guest, and so just family stuff, which is really wonderful. And more in my life, I'm trying to make sure that I create the spaces I need to be able to focus on family time and not always just be working, which is hard to do when you're a farmer and the work is constant and the work never stops and the work is always right there. And then simultaneously, we had Mother's Day. Thankfully, I had a modest offering for Mother's Day this year because I toned down my tulip crop like crazy this year because I needed a break. And I'm not completely convinced that tulips are really very profitable. The only time where I have found them to be worthwhile is to be selling the tulips for Mother's Day, but there's a lot of orchestration that goes into taking those tulips and getting them to that one particular day. And our tulip crop problems were insane last year, and the year before we had an insane amount of tulips to deal with, and I just needed a break. So I had, thankfully, some beautiful flowers to offer for Mother's Day, but I just didn't have the crazy amount of volume where it needed to be a full work sales day for me and my husband Steve. So it was really rather nice. It's been many years since Mother's Day has been that relaxing for me, and it was really nice. And thankfully, my perennial garden pretty much almost completely powered my Mother's Day sales. So once again, another nod towards the perennial gardens. And I wasn't exactly meaning to give you a complete life update here, but I feel like I need to explain why I haven't been around for 2 weeks on YouTube. We had gotten sick basically during Mother's Day weekend. We picked up COVID and it has flattened us out. It is not a normal sort of virus to be dealing with. And now I'm a week and a half later and I'm finally starting to get my energy. And because I was sick for so long, I'm having to play catch up on getting all my transplants in and things like that. So I've been very busy this week in particular, working really hard out in the field and getting everything set up. So I've been putting in a lot of my transplants that are meant for summer and fall bouquets like amaranthus and zinnias and statice. A lot of the plants that prefer to be planted in warmer conditions as well, and the ones that I'll really be pulling from for the next few months through July, August, and into the fall. But speaking of summer bouquets, a key player for me for my design work in the summer is my dahlias. And really, if I can grow dahlias, they supply me with my juicy focal bloom that I want and need for everything from market bouquets to bridal bouquets and other types of work. And everything else I grow is pretty much a complement to my dahlias, pretty much fillers and things that bring interest. So the dahlias for me are super important. I also just really love them. For me in my area, dahlias start flowering out in the field sometime in July, and they keep producing right through into the fall and to the first frost. So for me, they are a major workhorse, and I love that I can cut the flowers, and by cutting them, I signal more flowers to come, and it's just a win-win, in my opinion, from a cut flower plant. So I just love dahlias. And as I mentioned, I'm in my dahlia house surrounded by my dahlias, and I wanted to bring you an update because you may recall seeing some video updates about what I've been doing with my dahlias this year, from when I started waking them up and my entire waking up process and the timing of that as it's timed before my last frost date, to getting them in the ground, getting them planted in here, which happened about a month before my last frost date, and how I sort of handled them this year as an added assurance to keep the heat in and try to get them rooting, which was really successful this year with the black tarping that I was using. So that brings us to now. So now it has been about 5 weeks since my average last frost date, which for me is April 15th. This year, actually, the frost just kept on going. It was super, super late. So it was much later than I'm accustomed to. But those kinds of frosts aren't that dangerous. They're not that cold and they're not that intense. And everything that is growing in hoop houses tends to do okay. And I'm absolutely thrilled with my dahlias this year. I'm already seeing buds that are coloring up. So I think I'm going to be beating my own personal record of having early dahlias ready by sort of mid to late June has been the date in the past. I think I'm going to be beating that this year by a couple of weeks. So that's really exciting. Now it's not all perfect, and I'm going to be showing you a few things that are going on in here just to keep it real, just because there's always something around the corner when you are growing flowers. But I especially wanted to show you what I'm doing around this stage because it's really, really important for cut flower dahlia production, and that is pinching the plants. Now you can get more complex than what I do, so just keep that in mind if you're looking for methods for pinching, if you're showing your dahlias or other things, pinching based on the type of dahlia. But for me around here, it's survival of the fittest, and I'm growing specifically for the most part for market bouquets, so I'm pretty much treating all my dahlias the same way, regardless if they're dinner plate or if they're a ball dahlia. So pinching is really useful for dahlias if they are simply growing in the garden for the beauty. Pinching helps to create a more bushier, a more compact, and a nicer filled out plant. And for me, as a cut flower grower, pinching produces, in the end, more flowers. So it's really important for me to be doing that. So what I do when pinching my dahlias is I'm looking for the plants to have at least 4 sets of leaves. So I count from the bottom up. So this plant here has 1, 2, 3, 4. It actually has 5. And then another one starting here in the middle. So I'm looking ideally to get that at an earlier stage, but like I said, it's a bit of survival. We can't do perfect around here. So this is fine. I'm going to pinch this one at this stage. So I'm going to go up to my 4th set of leaves. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take off the central stem here, just like this, and leave the rest of these leaves in place. And by taking the center stem out, what I'm doing is I'm canceling the upward growth of this plant, and I'm actually going to cause it to think about sending more work into its laterals. So you can actually see there's lateral stems that are coming out here at every leaf node. So by pinching it, I'm going to be causing it now to send those out and produce more stems in effect. For every time I pinch, I'm getting 2 stems coming out from that center stem. And this is going to cause the plant to be a lot stronger. And as I said earlier, it's going to give me a lot more flowers. Now, it can be tempting to leave that terminal bud, especially when you see the bud happening. It can be tempting to leave it because taking it off seems like a shame. It'll set the plant back. It'll delay your blooming by a couple of weeks, but it is worth it, I promise. But that being said, I usually get a little impatient, and if I miss a plant, so on this one, I didn't get to pinching soon enough. By the time I was out here, there was already some buds, and of course, I can't really help it. I want to see that first bloom. I am dying for the first dahlia of the season, so I left this one. So this is a really great example of a plant that didn't get pinched. You can see how tall it's getting. And by all means, if you don't want to pinch and you want to try it this way, go for it. The one drawback that I have found is that by not pinching, what you end up with is you end up with such a thick stem that a lot of it isn't usable for your bouquet work or to fit into a vase. They get such a thick tree trunk of a stem that it really doesn't make a good cut flower dahlia. So that's the one drawback. But like I said, I'm guilty of it too. I left this one. I can't help it. I can't wait to see my first dahlias of the year. Now I've been pinching dahlias for I think a couple of weeks now because my dahlias are at a lot of different stages. Some of them are a lot further along, other ones are just breaking through the ground. Some of that depends on them being different varieties. Some of the varieties are quicker out of the gate than other ones, but I think some of them are just being stubborn because I've got a lot of variation in my growth, whether they didn't wake up as quickly initially or they didn't set roots quite as quickly and then got slowed down by colder temperatures. I don't really know. If you know dahlias, you know they can be a little bit temperamental and stubborn, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. Suffice to say, the dahlias are growing. A lot of them are super early this year, and I'm super pumped. So here's a dahlia that I wanted to show you because this is one of the first ones that I pinched. Wish I could remember exactly how long ago I pinched this. It would have been within the last couple of weeks. It might even have been just within a week. And you can see the laterals growing here now. So that's the difference between the last dahlia I showed you. You can see how the laterals are coming in at all levels, but particularly here at the top. And so this one is well on its way now in growth to be producing really well for me. So if you missed pinching your dahlias like me, or you purposely left a few of them like me again, that's all right. Don't panic. You can do that at any time. But even if you allow them to flower, when you harvest, if you do a deep cut into your plant, you're essentially going to be pinching them then as well. It'll just take a little longer at that point for you to get your next set of blooms. So far the dahlia house is looking really good. The plants are looking good, but I do have a few issues that I thought I would show you. A few different little things going on, as happens when one is growing flowers. So here's the classic dahlia problem. This poor dahlia is just desperate to try to survive. The slugs, however, have been targeting this one. This can happen to me particularly sometimes on my edges where there's a dip in the elevation, where I have more of a drainage issue. There are some zones in my hoop house that have a higher water table, that have a bit of a drainage issue, and the slugs in our area can be quite terrible. Sometimes it's fixable though. So for example, here, there was a stack right where I'm sitting. There were a bunch of extra tarps that I had stacked up. So it was just holding a lot of moisture and creating a perfect environment for slugs to be living under and then coming out when it cools off and eating whatever is closest to them. It's a reason why mulching doesn't always work in my climate. It's a reason why I don't use fabric for a lot of my garden beds. It just in the past has created way too much opportunity for slugs to come in, and they mow through my little transplants like nothing. So yes, this guy will be okay now, and I guess I'll pinch this one while I'm here. So 1, 2, 3, 4 sets. So we'll just take this one down right to here. It will help give it a chance to reestablish itself, and should be okay now. Here's another one where the slugs have been having a heyday right beside all these super healthy looking plants. This is trying to be a dahlia here. If I can just keep the slugs away, it will come. Here's another problem. You can see some issues here showing up. Some damage to the leaves. These can be hard to figure out because this kind of damage can be viral. However, in this section here, if you look really closely, you can see this sort of shaving of spots here. See this on these leaves? See these little shiny bits? It's like something's been burrowing through here. So I actually think, because I see a little bit of sort of webbing as well, I see some signs here of some sort of spider webby kind of webbing. And so I actually think this section has spider mites, and I will have to be dealing with that. Here's another situation here on my cafe au laits, which are relatively new to me, and I'm seeing some significant yellowing. Sometimes it's looking like the yellowing is going along the veins, which can indicate a viral issue. Time will tell with these. I'm not about to send samples away to be tested. I don't sell tubers anymore. I'm not too concerned about it. So we will see whether I'm ripping these out or whether some treatments for thrips and spider mites will fix this issue. Time will tell. So I do tend to get thrips issues every single year with my dahlias, so I will be spraying in here. Another thing that can be done is using predators, using insects to help control the pest populations. In the meantime, while I wait for my first dahlia blooms, my peony season is pretty much about to start, and I'm busy getting the last of my transplants in and starting a few rounds of succession seeds like snapdragons. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, or even suggestions about what's going on with some of my dahlias. They're always something that I learn from every single year. There seems to be always something new. And as long as I don't get too caught up in stressing about them, they're a super enjoyable crop. That's all for now. Thanks so much for being here. I'm so excited to be going through my first entire growing season this year here on YouTube with you. I'm so excited for all that is going to come and everything that I'll be able to share and everything that's going to happen in the gardens as well. So I'll see you next time. Have a great day.